Fellas, huge last couple days for this Michigan basketball team. We said that if they were going to scratch and claw their way back into the NCAA tournament picture, it was going to have to be earned. And they've done that and then some since we last spoke when we did our pre-recorded show on Thursday. A win at Rutgers in one of those classic Big Ten rock fight type of games. And then an overtime thriller and as crazy a game as I've seen at Chrysler Center in a long time, Sunday afternoon against Wisconsin. Hunter Dickinson, of course, hits a shot at the buzzer at the end of regulation to arguably save Michigan's season and send it to overtime. So, fellas, I mean, just your reaction from the last few days, and we can have the bubble conversation now, right?
We can. It's in sight, and it kind of depends on who you talk to. It's kind of funny, though, because we are one miracle shot away from talking about how crappy this team is and listening to people talk about how crappy this team is and everything else, and they gave up 41 points in the second half, but winning cures all. Right? That's the thing. Look at Iowa, for example. They gave up 101 points in regulation to Michigan State and still found a way to come back and win and change the entire narrative of that game. And that's exactly what happened with that Michigan-Wisconsin game. So credit to Hunter Dickinson. You know, I was thinking about Tom Izzo's comment about Kobe Buffkin's shot against him, how it was 100-1. And I was wondering, what do you think, guys, that Hunter's shot was, 10-1, because I think he makes that maybe 1 out of 10 times when he's got that clean a look. You know what? The guy's a good shooter, and that's what I'm writing in an article that's going to be going up here in about 30 minutes, is that he is a 40.4% three-point shooter. Now, granted, it was a tough one. He had a little bit, but he had a good look at it, and I thought it was pure.
Yeah, I'd say 10-1 on that shot. It was pretty deep. But yeah, definitely worse odds than Kobe Buffkin making the one he did against Michigan State, and it still wasn't 100-1. But we'll give Tom Izzo that one, I guess. He's got bigger issues to deal with after blowing that huge lead at Iowa late. But man, this Michigan team just incredible. You get a break here or there. Wisconsin got a break with a bank shot. Michigan played better, I thought, in that game and deserved to win, and they did, dominating the overtime 19-11. The guard play was just fantastic. I think Kobe Buffkin, his last 4 or 5 shots were all to either pull Michigan within 2. That was one of them. And then the other 3 were to take a lead when it was either tied or Michigan was down. So people are starting to call him Big Shot Buffkin. Some people out there, I think that was just me maybe. But, he's really coming on. He averaged nearly 17 points in the month of February, 6 rebounds, I think 3 assists or 4 assists. So he's come on, he was already playing good basketball earlier on in the season, but he's been the difference. And then Doug McDaniel with some of his mid-range shots, the guard play has been fantastic. And then, that kind of is the help that Hunter Dickinson needs. And then sometimes you just need Hunter Dickinson to play really well himself. He dominated for different stretches of that game against Wisconsin and made some big buckets against Rutgers. And Michigan's doing all this without Jet Howard. So that's been impressive as well. And the defense has gotten better too. I don't think it's a huge coincidence that that's happening without Jet Howard on the floor. But either way, Michigan's improving. They're the only Big Ten team to have 6 wins in the month of February. They're one of the hottest teams in the country right now. If you look at T-Rank, Bart Torvik's website, since February, Michigan's the 15th best team in the country efficiency-wise with a defense ranked in the 30s. So that is market improvement from what we saw out of Michigan when they were flying home on January 29th. After a 22-point loss to Penn State.
2 things, Anthony, before you continue. 0 assists for Doug McDaniel. I thought that was one of the interesting stats of the game. 7 total assists on 29 buckets. So sometimes you just got to find different ways, and they did. And then I asked Kobe Buffkin specifically on that last bucket when he went to the hole, if he got fouled. You could see on the replay he just about got decapitated. That was ridiculous. Big Ten officials need to be better. That was crazy. But give them credit for overcoming that. And you know what? Huge shot by Hunter Dickinson. If you're going to talk the talk, you better walk the walk. Remember, we wrote that column a couple weeks ago saying, man, do more, say less. Well, he did more on Sunday afternoon.
And then he popped off with a tweet, which was well deserved.
That's okay. If you want to talk after that one, then hey, it's like he said, Sundays during Lent, and a lot of Catholics don't know this. Sundays do not actually count as days of Lent. So you know what? Have at it. He could have tweeted 500 things and it would have been fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with Hunter Dickinson because there are times this year where I think he wants to be Rowdy Roddy Piper, but he's more like Wile E. Coyote and the one who might have this dastardly plan, but winds up losing in the end. But Hunter, I mean, listen, I mean, I'll stop short of calling that legacy defining shot, but if Michigan finds its way into the NCAA tournament, I mean, that's absolutely something that, one of the biggest plays in his Michigan career. So, I mean, he deserves a lot of credit for that. I think CLayton, it was obviously Wisconsin had stormed back and taken the lead late, but I think I looked at you at one point and said, Kobe's going to hit a shot to make this interesting, or I forget what I said, to seal the game for Michigan. And it wasn't sealing the game, but he did so not long after that. So I'm going to take some co-credit on the big shot Buffkin call.
For sure.
I'm big on giving people their flowers here. And a guy that, listen, not a huge impact on the scoring sheet. I get it, but CLayton, you said this before the inbound pass to Dickinson. What a weird place to have to inbound from. Shout out to Terrence Williams for one of the toughest inbound passes that you could probably make, and Hunter Dickinson for coming down with it. Obviously, it's a big target to hit, but both those guys have played a lot of basketball together. I don't know if that connection works with anyone else. That play was supposed to go to Joey Baker, and obviously he was covered and not open. But when you look at the box score of that game, you see the only 7 assists. Wisconsin deserves credit too. I mean, they will throw the kitchen sink at you defensively. They're kind of a dollar store, dime store Virginia in that aspect. The way that they play the game and kind of muck it up and bring you down into the gutter with them. But that's one they absolutely had to have. Michigan doesn't win that game. I think they were like a 68% projection to win that game on KenPom. That's one of the ones you had to have. And they found a way. And I think the biggest thing to me about these last 3 games is that not only you've won them, but it has been rewriting the narrative in terms of finding a way to close out games. I think part of it too is you have a go-to guy in these situations now in Buffkin who feels like he's been doing nothing but making clutch plays over this 3-game win streak. And, at some point, for me, I think the biggest thing is Doug McDaniel. I think he's averaging around 17.5 points per game in these last 3 wins. We've talked about this a number of times. It was never in the plans for him to play as much as he has, but what you're starting to see is him figure it out. And, on nights where, I know the assist numbers aren't where you want them to be in a game on Sunday, but only, 2 turnovers? I think he's only had 3 turnovers total in the last 3 games. So he's playing his best basketball this season at a time where guard play this time of year, really guard play anytime, but especially late February going into March, guard play win or loses you basketball games. And McDaniel mixed with what Buffkin is giving you is why Michigan has had this turnaround.
And I want to point something out on the box score that you see there. A plus 20 for Terrence Williams. Now, sometimes plus minus can be deceiving. Early in the year, it was Will Cheddar. Michigan was better when he was on the floor. And teams started to figure out that if they go right at him and expose him defensively, that's going to change. That's exactly what happened against Rutgers. That's exactly what happened against Wisconsin. They moved that ball around to find that mismatch and really took advantage of him. And I really thought that Williams should have started the second half in his place. When you have an 8-point lead, and Cheddar's been struggling, and that they're going to continue to go to that. And Terrence Williams, I think, was plus 12 or something at the half. I thought they should have gone there, but the last 2 games now, Terrence Williams plus 18 and I think 20 minutes against Rutgers. That means that Michigan's outscoring Rutgers by that many points when he's on the floor, and then a plus 20 against Wisconsin is phenomenal. It speaks to the other things that he's doing, the rebounds, the 7 rebounds that he got against Wisconsin, his defense, which has gotten better. His lateral movement against Rutgers really caught my eye. Maybe it was because he'd rested a couple games there and he came back but he looked much better. And I thought that was critical. So now if they can get him to hit a couple shots, guys, these are all things that I'm writing about in my article for tonight. You know what? I think he's 2 for 16 from threes. And a lot of them guys have been wide open looks. There was one yesterday. I'm thinking you got to make that shot. There's nobody within, 15 feet of you. So, but the other things that he's doing is making this a better basketball team, but to reach its ceiling, he's got to be a better shooter. So I give him credit too. Maybe the shot wasn't 100-1 that Hunter Dickinson hit, but the play overall. Maybe you make that 1 out of 100 times with the perfect pass, the way it played out. And as Greg Gard, Wisconsin's coach, said, Clay, he wasn't supposed to go for the ball. He just was supposed to stay between him and the ball. But, sometimes things don't go as planned.
Yeah, Terrence Williams, I just think he's better than Will Cheddar. Sometimes the plus minus can be a little bit random, but just in general, I mean, you watch him defend, and you're right. I was going back and looking at the synergy stats. Will Cheddar had, he only played 10 minutes, but 7 of Wisconsin's points were when he was the primary defender. Joey Baker was responsible for 15 of Wisconsin's points. They were kind of going at him too. And Terrence Williams came in, played much better defense. I agree with you. I thought he was fantastic defensively on Thursday against Rutgers as well. All sorts of different guys he was getting matched up on, Caleb McConnell, even Paul Mulcahy when he was on him. But speaking of Terrence Williams' shooting, what if that's an outlier for Michigan down the stretch here? What if he starts hitting a couple shots? John Beilein used to always talk about how at this time of year, if you're going to make a run, or in Michigan's case here, win enough games to get into the NCAA tournament, you're going to need some outliers to happen. And one of those that's happening is, Anthony, what you're talking about with Doug. I was looking at some stats on his mid-range shooting, 47.4% on mid-range jumpers this year. That's third in the Big Ten among those with 20 or more attempts. So, and there was one where his foot was like on the line. I was like, just step back an inch. But no, maybe that's his thing. It's going to be the long two. Everyone's kind of trying to phase that out of the game right now, analytics wise, but it's working for Doug. So keep letting those fly. And, he's bound to make a mistake. We saw him have a turnover late. That's going to happen with a young point guard like him, but overall he's been much better lately. 0 assists. I mean, he was kind of taking what Wisconsin was giving. They're kind of backing up on him, and he was taking those shots. I thought he controlled the game pretty well, which is an area he's grown in as well. So if Doug McDaniel can be an outlier, if Terrence Williams can be an outlier, if it is Joey Baker at some point, or even if it's Will Cheddar off the bench, if he starts to play a little bit better, you have a good enough core, I think, right now with Kobe Buffkin, Hunter Dickinson, potentially whatever Jet Howard gives you when he comes back, which I would expect to be Thursday. Then, if those other pieces come along enough, you're a dangerous enough team to, knock off anybody, I think.
Yeah, and I want to, Hutch, if you don't mind pulling up Michigan's schedule here down the stretch, that would be great. I also want to move on a bit into the road ahead and what's next. Now, there has been a narrative out there that this team is better without Jet Howard, and I'm not buying that. I want to get your guys' thoughts on that, but I still think, you look at where this team is at right now. I think it's in a good headspace at the moment. I think that defensively, there's been enough buy-in. There were some blow-bys Wisconsin had, but Juwan said after the game, Wisconsin's a good team, and they have guys that can score and get to the rim, and that's going to happen sometimes. So, for me, I think that it takes some pressure off of rushing Jet Howard back, because you do have the rest of your pieces playing well, and then you plug a guy who maybe gets his wheels back beneath him. And if you can get that guy back on your team and start hitting, he kind of gets back to his vintage self in terms of hitting shots. I still think the best version of this basketball team includes him out on the floor. But what do you guys think about not only him, but, these final 2 games? You talk about the road ahead here. Michigan's sitting here at 17 wins. We've been talking about for weeks, the magic number looks like it's 19. So you win these next 2 at Illinois, at Indiana, you got to feel pretty good about yourself. You even split the next 2, you feel good about it in terms of what your matchups could look like in this Big Ten tournament in Chicago. But all of a sudden, like you said, we're back to talking about this team being on the NCAA tournament bubble. And, how do you guys feel about these final 2 games and what Jet Howard can provide in them?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it is the elephant in the room. I asked Juwan Howard specifically after the game. I said, how do you feel now knowing that you've got a guy in Kobe Buffkin who has grown into that role of being the guy that wants the ball down the stretch? And who was it against Indiana? It looked like nobody wanted it. Yeah, and here's Kobe Buffkin now hitting the jump shot off the dribble to give Michigan a late lead. He takes it to the rim, got hacked, should have been at the free throw line to win the game. I have no doubt that he would have hit those free throws or at least one to tie the game. He's got that much confidence in his game right now. And Juwan's response was, well, we got a bunch of guys like that. And I'm thinking, well, okay, but right now you've got one that's kind of separated himself. So it's interesting because we get a lot of people saying, oh, you're way too hard on Jet Howard and it's noticeable and you don't like him and you don't like Juwan and this and that and this and that. And I'll say this, we're always going to call him like we see him. And we have been tame compared to some of the former Michigan basketball players that we've talked to, speaking about Jet Howard's defense out there, where it looks like he doesn't care. There are some really harsh comments there where sometimes they are deserved, where, come on, Jet, you know what? You got 4 guys playing one defense and you're playing something else. There's no excuse for that at this point in the year. You got 4 guys busting their ass and you're sitting there loafing a little bit. That's not acceptable. And that's something that we would expect the head coach to hold him accountable for. And I expect he will. And he has at times this year. So, but when you've got these guys playing as well as they have together in stretches, you still need another scorer. If you look at that box score from yesterday, 3 guys did all the scoring essentially, right? And you still need another scorer out there. And Jet Howard can be that as long as he understands that he doesn't have to be dribbling the air out of the ball and launching, from 25 feet early in the shot clock, and he's taking it within the framework of the offense. Then I think he's certainly a positive on this team. But he's got to be better defensively. He's got to be more dialed in. And to the little things as well. I want to see him better on the glass, guys. There's no reason that he shouldn't be a better rebounder than he is. So I don't think there's any question that he can and will help this team as long as he is 100% committed to that and he's 100% healthy, which it sounds like he will be. Juwan Howard is going to insist upon that before he comes back from that ankle injury. But let's see what happens here in the next 2 games. I definitely think Illinois is the more winnable of the 2. Indiana on senior day and the way they're playing is going to be a tough one. So really, as somebody said on the message board Thursday, it's almost kind of a play-in game, Clay.
Yeah, and you said it with Jet Howard. It's, I wrote this after the game. I hope he's been taking notes of just the effort his teammates have been playing with defensively and just how dialed in they've been to the scouting report, to who they're guarding, to what they're doing, where they're supposed to be, that sort of thing, because it's been pretty noticeable. And it's been a small sample size with Jet Howard. I don't think Michigan's better off without him. But for me, it's like right now, some of the issues they have defensively, they're no juggernaut on defense, even though they've been better. But when they do have issues, it's more about, okay, well, that's Joey Baker. He just can't stay in front of that guy with that angle or whatever. It's been more about personnel limitations than it has been about mental mistakes or, playing zone when everyone else is in man, that sort of thing, which to me, sometimes you just got to chalk it up to good offense. Like even Wisconsin, not a good offensive team, who I've been critical throughout the season they made some great shots. Klesmit was incredible. I thought Connor Essegian, he's kind of the new Dwayne Washington, where he wanted to be he wanted to play at Michigan or whatever, didn't get an offer. And now here he is putting up 2 separate career highs against Michigan. I guess they said on the broadcast he grew up a Michigan fan. So, sometimes you got to chalk it up to that. But then when you look at, going ahead here, Illinois, Indiana, Illinois would be much easier than winning at Indiana on Trace Jackson Davis's senior day. I would say that. Individually, I don't look at either of these as a win, but I think odds are they probably get one of them, and they're in a really good spot. I think they could probably get in with 18 wins if it's one of these 2. If they lose both and then win just one in the Big Ten tournament, then I think it'll probably be tough. You might have to win 2, and it depends on your draw and all that sort of thing. It's a moving target, but you get one of these 2, and I think you feel pretty good going to the Big Ten tournament. You may have a double bye, and there's kind of the argument, well, do you want a double bye because you get less opportunities to kind of, pick up an extra win? But to me, I'm like, man, the committee knows, that you earned your way to get that double bye. And secondly, it means you knocked off one of these teams and picked up a quality win to get that. So I'm in that camp. I think you want the double bye. I think that, you want to win one of these next 2. Certainly you want to win them both. And it's just amazing that they technically have a chance, not just technically, they have a chance of getting a share of the Big Ten title going into the final week, which is insane. Purdue would have to lose their last 2. Michigan would have to win these 2, and other teams could share it as well. But the fact that we're talking about that again, after a month ago, they looked dead in the water, speaks to the improvement, speaks to the way they've played lately.
Think about this, Anthony, real quick. If Michigan had Jet Howard and they had beaten Purdue, they would be tied in the Big Ten standings right now for the lead. So I believe that's the case, which is crazy.
Yeah, I think they'd be
within
a game. That's for
would
sure.
they be within a game?
Yeah,
no, because they'd have
2 games
back right
now.
You're
right. You're right. But they'd have, I guess that's true. Let's see. Purdue is 13-5. Right. But if Michigan had beaten Purdue head to head, then Purdue would be 12-7 in the league, and Michigan would be 12-7 in the league.
What are they, 13th?
Or 12 and yeah. No, you're right. Hold on. Yeah, they'd have one less win, right? And one more loss. So they'd be 12-6, and Michigan would be 12-6 if they had beaten Purdue.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so,
great math.
Yeah. So
Well,
that's at Michigan. That's at Michigan education. Yeah. So,
It's like Mike Francesa
I'm Mac,
doing the math.
That's right.
Live
I'm
right
Mac
there.
educated, so math
there
is
you
not
go.
my strong suit. I'll say this. Looking most likely, just when you break down the seeding, still there's a less than 1% chance at the number 1 seed, which is again off. I don't see it. It's less than 1%. Let's not.
Well, Kobe Buffkin made the shot against Michigan State, so I mean, who knows?
That's 1%. And Michigan had a 2% chance to win the Big Ten, right, in football 2 years ago.
That's right. That's right. You're right. So it is mathematically in play. Really, seeds 1 through 9 still mathematically in play. So a lot riding on, even if you just split one of these games this week. It's looking like I'll just run through it really quick. 16% for the number 2 seed, 18% for the number 3 seed, 12% for the 4 seed, 13% for the number 5 seed, 9% for the 6, 13% for the 7, 14% for the 8, and 5% for the number 9. So for me, I mean, I think you want to mostly just avoid that 8-9 game because even if you do need 2 wins, that means you're going to get Purdue next, and who knows, maybe Michigan gets one against Purdue. But right now, if the Big Ten tournament started today, which doesn't matter because there is so much more to sort out, but it's a fun exercise. Michigan would be the number 5 seed and take on either Ohio State and Nebraska, who would have played a game on Wednesday night. So I think you take that right now if you can get one of those 2 games. So, or get one of these 2 games down the stretch. So obviously they've played themselves back in the bubble. I think 18 wins is probably a coin flip. I think I'd feel pretty good about 19 if this team can find a way to get there, and anything more than that is just gravy. So need 2 wins. Anything that you don't get in these last 2, tax on what you would need to get in Chicago about 11 days from now. So a lot to still play for. As of right now, Joe Lunardi put them in his, I believe his first 4 out. So some work that still needed to be done, but they're in the conversation. I think that's all you can really ask for right now. Any other final thoughts on hoops, fellas?
Yeah, I'll even go to Dayton, fellas. I don't care. Let's just make the tournament here so that we don't have to cover the NIT, with all due respect to the people who cover the NIT. I remember watching Michigan and Hawaii. It was like an 80-degree day in March, and Michigan was playing the NIT against Hawaii, and they had to open up all the doors. This is before all the renovations, and it was horrible. I don't want you guys to have to experience that. So this is really for me about you. I don't want you to have to cover that.
Yeah, a couple people responded to Hunter on a great question from Clayton yesterday, asking if he had thought about yesterday's game being his last at Michigan. Dickinson said he didn't think so, and of course you get the smart ass people who go, "That's because they'll be hosting NIT games in a couple weeks." So we'll see. All you can ask for is a chance, and they've given themselves a chance, and it's well earned. And Juwan Howard, Phil Martelli, Howard Isley, Sade Washington coaching their asses off right now. They deserve flowers for that. Thank you so much for watching. For more videos from the Wolverine, whether it be football, basketball, recruiting, live shows, and more, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for the latest.